My name's Tony Lott. I'm the general manager at Fred Bean's Kia in Langhorne. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman and Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now, and anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry has been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry, and he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer, and that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out of a textbook, but Larry has real-world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there, and I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
All right. Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, if you don't want to be bothered, fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Hey, if you missed us live, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast.
This is Ian from the AutoHub show. We're here at a SodaCon in Baltimore, Maryland, actually Hanover, Maryland. And we have a very short gentleman next to me here who's got some thoughts on all kinds of things. I don't even want to get started with how many things he's into, but let's start with an intro, and then there's a few irons in the fire. Am I fair there?
Yeah, just a little bit.
So why don't you start with an intro? What irons in the fire? Be a little bit about your story, and I'll go from there.
Yeah. So do you need me to hold that, or you got it?
No, I got it.
Okay. So my name.
Your voice even up there. Yeah.
So my name is Duran Cage, and I'm the owner and founder of Cage Automotive, and then also the co-founder of Bev Everything. And so on the Cage side, and that's why I'm here at a SodaCon today, is I really focus on internet sales, CRM, and social media, like branding strategies. So I've been in the business since 2002, sold my first car in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and worked for the manufacturers, and that's what led me to a job in Memphis, Tennessee, where I ran a store out there. And fast forward to 2018, started a business consulting and training car dealerships, primarily around the internet sales and online experience, because that's the biggest opportunity in most stores.
Well, that's right in our wheelhouse. I mean, I managed an internet department at a large Honda store. I started in the business, I think, around 2000. So I've been in the business, I think, close to 25 years, and then I have a family history going back a couple of generations. But at the end of the day, for us on the show, it's always been about helping car dealers get better, and it's all about, in our opinion, and this is just what we think, it's about customer experience, but more importantly, it's about customers, because without customers, there is no business. That includes the car business. So training a lot of dealers, and we know process is part of it. And we actually had a show on Monday about AI, and that was kind of interesting because we had some interviews today about it. What's your feeling on what's broken at car dealers that can be, I guess, easily fixed, or the top thing that you fix when you do this?
Yeah, so I would say the most broken and common thing that we see across the industry, we call it the gap. The gap is called leaders that run the stores but did not have the opportunity to work internet deals or actually be involved in the internet department or the BDC. So the reason why there's a gap is because we're still seeing in our industry that there's leaders that are just trusting the people in the internet department or the BDC to do it all without being actively engaged in that. And that's a problem because the traffic now, 80 to 90% of traffic is coming through digitally. So it's either a phone up or it's online. That's where a lot of this stuff is coming. And so the best leaders before digital came, they were some of the best at guiding the traffic on the lot, right? So a good leader would be like, hey, what's that person's name? What's that person's name? Make sure you get them logged, right? If we didn't log them or we didn't TO, for the people that are veterans listening to this, you know what happened. It was a scolding or you got fired. But then those leaders, when the business transitioned to digital, a lot of those leaders stayed on the lot. So they're still watching the lot the same way, but they haven't fixed their eyes to understand the digital customer and that experience. And so that is the biggest opportunity and the biggest gap, is because when leaders, whether the dealership has a BDC department or does not, but when the leaders understand that online shopper, right, they get it, and then they actually work in the internet department, like be in there for a day. If you can't do a day, spend 2 hours. And 2 hours in an internet department for a general manager, GSM, or sales manager will open up their eyes and mind blown them on how many opportunities and what can be done there.
Well, 100%. I mean, when I managed an internet department, it was a long time ago now, almost 15 years.
Yeah.
What was shocking when I took over the department is no one else wanted to do it. They were
That's
like,
right.
yeah, those people don't buy anything. They're not coming in. They're just wasting your time. And then now, fast forward, you look at it, and I set up BDCs and train them as well, so I'm familiar with that part of it. But more importantly, when you look at it from the OEM side, having worked with the OEM myself, it's about customer experience, but more importantly, people aren't visiting 5 stores anymore. They're visiting 1. If it's really bad, maybe 1.1, so maybe a second store. And if that doesn't tell you that you need to focus on the way people want to buy cars versus the traditional road to the sale model, there's something wrong. But more importantly, when you look at it, the amount of leads you're getting, how are those being handled by that old car dog, for example, or the old car dog manager who says, is it in the CRM? Oh, absolutely. Do you know? Absolutely, probably not. Yeah. My guess.
No, that's it, because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, So if it's like we don't see it, it didn't happen. And so we're just talking about the internet sales part. We're not even talking about making sure that engagement with the internet sales and understanding that department, making sure that they're correlating that in the CRM, because there's still leaders that will go around, and I'll still see it today, and I know you do too. Yeah. They'll go around, what do we got working today? How many appointments you got? How many appointments you got? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the CRM. So the conversation be like, hey, I noticed in the CRM, you only have 1 appointment today. How can I help you get another one? That's the shift that I'm talking about, that I'm not seeing. Is like we're still a little bit on the old school side of what we're seeing on the floor from a leadership. And once they buy in, their language changes as well.
Yeah, I mean, we did an interview earlier today with a company that have a lot of data. They do a lot of data work with big companies, including Walmart, CarMax, other companies. And the thing that really blew me away was, even if they're open or closed, based on people accessing the internet around that location, they can tell you not only what those people are looking at, they could even tell you if, say, a dealer group of multiple rooftops throughout North America, they could say, okay, well, Johnny was here looking at this car, and then he was over here looking at this car, totally different brand. But more importantly from that, which was interesting, was he said, we could even tell you what the traffic is on your lot or in your store.
Wow.
Where you can move around cars. Like, oh, you want to sell Corvettes? Okay, well, people aren't walking by this part of your lot. You may want to put something else there.
But the thing that really blew me away is he said, your lot could be closed. The customer could be walking on. It could tell them how to get to that car they're looking at.
Wow.
Based on where they
scary.
are. Oh, I got to look at that Corvette. Well,
Yeah.
let's direct you. The store isn't even open.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that going, okay, it was bad enough when we didn't know who was coming in and out of our store, or we weren't sure if they were logging it. But are we even laying out our store inventory properly? Because they're using Walmart as an example and other big retailers that they work with as well, saying, hey, we know that if you put chocolate here on this aisle,
Yep.
people walk by that and you're going to sell more chocolate. Not to say you should, but that's what's going to happen. If you're putting a bunch of stuff on special in this part of your store, nobody goes there.
Yeah.
You may want to put, I don't know, customer service or something else there. But, that kind of thing, when you look at retail and you look at things like accessory sales, to pick a random thing, you look at the amount of stuff that OEMs want dealers to sell, but they don't train them how to sell them. Like, I want you to sell hats and jackets and, side step bars, but we don't know how to do that. But we'll sell them to you, and then you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Whereas some brands, like be it BMW or others, they have even almost a boutique in the store almost.
Yep.
Where they're selling more of that than sometimes cars, because some people just go in to buy the, say, Ferrari hat, for example, where they can't afford the Ferrari hat. They may eventually, but I think that's another area which is really interesting. The other thing that's really came out on our AI show on Monday, we were talking to a lady from CDK who's in charge of data for them. 40 years of data throughout globally. The power of using that if you knew how to use it. But a lot of people are having trouble even understanding the CRM reports they have now that they've had in some cases for 30 years.
Yep.
So when you're talking to people about electric, you're talking to people about fixing the customer journey, but more importantly, getting results with maybe old school thinking.
Yeah.
How do you, light up that person who says, yeah, well, it's just about the process. I've always done it this way. It's fine. The customers just aren't coming in. I mean, how do you light those people up?
Have those people get into the customer's shoes. So when I'll run through people, even during my training, we'll slow down during that training and be like, hey, leaders, salespeople, I want you guys to pick a dealership. Let's not all pick the same one, right? But pick one store, and I want you to go through the digital retailing process. I want you to act like, some people do the get your e-price, that's a whole nother topic. But get your e-price, check availability, finance app, whatever that is. Everybody go do that, and then let's get back to training and let's see what happens. And you'll see by the end of that, everybody's like, I cannot believe it. You have some stores that call you 20 times. You have some stores that don't call you at all. You have some stores that do ask questions. You have some that just say, hey, what time can you come in? And anytime the leaders go through that, then I'll ask them, okay, now, if you were really buying a car, how would you do it? Because what's funny, a lot of us can say this, when we buy cars, even me, as a consultant, but a lot of people, sales managers and GMs, when they buy a car, they don't buy them the way that they sell them. Right. Yep. But there's other high-end people out there that are at the equivalent of a general manager, if not higher, that want to actually buy that way because they purchased from that dealership multiple times before, or they purchased online multiple times. But since we're not asking the right questions, it's like we're treating customers. We want them to go through an experience that we would never actually go through ourselves. And that's where so if we can break down that barrier, and when you see screenshots of mystery shops and live interactions, and when they see what these emails say, that's when the leaders are like, okay, I see what you're saying. This is terrible. Or I shouldn't say terrible, that's negative. There's a big opportunity, right?
Right.
Because if they see 10 mystery shops and 8 out of those stores didn't answer the customer's questions or provide them with an experience or help them get to the next step, then that should kind of get the ball going.
I did a survey on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago because we were doing a show, and it was like, how long should it take to buy a car in 2024? And there were a couple of choices, like however long it takes, 2 hours, 15 minutes, half an hour, an hour, something like that. The biggest one, and this is front to back, the most successful one in terms of the top pick, I think was an hour or less. And I look at not the last car I bought, but the car before that. I think it took 3 hours, and I work in the car business. And the thing was funny, and I think we talked about it in the show on customer experience. And one of the gentlemen said, okay, I went in to buy a car. I didn't tell him I was in the car business. And I was shocked how long it took. Not about just the process in terms of could it be better? Absolutely. But when people look at servicing their car and buying their car, especially the younger generations that are generally, I think millennials and younger now, based on the CDK study I just read, they sent me a copy. They actually have older millennials, younger millennials, Gen Z, and those three groups are now over 50% of the customers, and they're probably less patient than the baby boomer or my Generation X because they've always had that expectation. If anything, it's their attention span's declining.
Yep.
So if you tell them, okay, do you want to go to a bank and wait an hour to get a loan, or do you want to go to a car dealership and wait 4 hours to buy a car? Well, I don't like either, but
I was going to say neither.
An hour is a problem. And then the other thing that is really interesting on the service side of the house, and I think there's a bunch of dealers who do this really well, on the oil change side, just to pick a random service, people want an oil change in 30 minutes or less, or they just don't want to pay for it. That's why they go to Jiffy Lube or pick your third party, not because they know how to fix a car, but because they know it's going to be quick.
Yeah.
And I think quick and great experience is possible, but it has to start online because people are spending 10 to 12 hours online anyway. But the big disconnect, as you look at online to in-store experience, is in some cases, not all the cases, but in some cases you have an online experience where the customer does a lot of the things right. And then they come in and they go, oh, did you have an appointment with us today? Yeah, I just spent like 3 hours going through this process online, dude. I'm frustrated now. Can I buy the car? And they're like, oh, we don't know who you are. It's
right.
Like, so we talked about this with response time. We talked about process, talked about technology. But to me, it's about doing it right in a reasonable amount of time. And I think Ben Stock quoted this frictionless experience. But as you look at all this out there with multiple dealers and the ones who do it right that you train and the ones that do it right that maybe you're just aware of, what do you think are the top sort of three things they do right versus the other people in the market that maybe just don't get it yet or just don't want to do it yet?
I would say the three things that people do right, okay, got you, that most don't see is, I would start with our people, internally, how are we coaching and training our people each day? Like, are we really understanding where that employee is trying to go? So when I do training, and I always start with, what does everybody want to accomplish today? What is their goal in the future? And then how can I help you get there? If leaders in dealerships will ask that routinely, weekly, daily, monthly, where are you trying to go and how can I help you get there? That's number one. That changes everything, right? And how the employee sees the leader, and then how the employee treats the customers all of a sudden change. Number two, I would say setting up and making sure that everybody understands that CRM to what it can actually be used for and how it can save them time. So I'm really big within the CRM, and you might be as well, about using simplified processes and custom statuses and tags to organize every person in there. But again, everything that I'm saying means nothing unless the leadership team actively uses it. So the Save a Deal meetings that we used to have 20 years ago should now include the CRM up on a screen somewhere where we're just going through it for 10 or 15 minutes. It should actually turn the Save a Deal meeting from like 30 minutes to 15 or 20 minutes, because you can go to the same place, create a report to find low-hanging fruit. And then the third thing is with the dealers that are really rocking and doing well, and I talk about this a lot as well, is using video, AI, any kind of innovative technology that gives their employees and their customers an opportunity to create a better experience than those stores that don't. Because I feel like, we'll see that there's two types of dealers right now. They're either all in on using innovation and technology to help their team and help them get better, or there's the other store that uses nothing because they believe it's going to replace us or something like that. And what I would challenge is if you can get right there in the middle, and again, these top stores, this is what they do, is they embrace the technology and the tools that they have, but they do that after number one and number two are done. When they have the basics, the fundamentals down, now let's put the icing on the cake with innovation. But what I'm seeing stores on the opposite side do is, one, they don't train their people as much. They don't even have a culture for coaching. Two, they believe the CRM is junk. And then three, they believe AI, if they are going to use AI and technology, they believe that it will actually sell them the car. And it won't yet. It won't. Yes, there are some AIs that can book appointments. I saw somebody call out about that here while we were at a SodaCon. Somebody said AI can book appointments. Yes, they can. But can the AI get them to actually show up the way that a human could? Could the AI make sure that they get a human voice that says, hey, when you get here, this is where you're going to park? Now, could AI be trained to do that? Absolutely. But at some point, the customers are going to want to deal with a human. Or ask the customer at the beginning, would you prefer this process to be handled by automation AI, or would you like a human? And that's where dealers, they should do that. I would love to see a dealer survey their customers and say, hey, would you prefer to deal with us, or would you like a streamlined bot that can answer most of your questions, and it might be a simple process? And I think most customers are probably going to say, if you've got a human that can help, I want the human. But if you don't have any humans available, I'll take the AI.
Yeah, I mean, I always compare that to years ago when you'd sell a car to an accountant. And it wasn't about the car. It was like, okay, what's the amortization period? What's the interest rate? What's the payment? How can you save me more money? And by the way, is it available in white or in silver or whatever? Yeah. That percentage of people, I think, were the early adopters also of digital retail, even though it was not a great process. And it probably still a percentage today, but the lion's share of people want a personalized experience because they want it to be enjoyable. Much like they do in air travel, even though that can be a mixed bag. And I think you're 100% right that if you don't have those basics down, if you don't have an understanding, if you're not embracing the change that's happening, you're going to be farther and farther behind. And I think that there's dealers, to quote a gentleman I interviewed at NADA 2 years ago, who sold 2 companies that are quite successful. He says there's about 1,000 to 3,000 proactive dealers in the U.S. market, and the rest follow them. Yeah. So if you can influence those 1,000 to 3,000, you're going to get the rest. But those other dealers are just waiting to see what the heavy hitters are doing.
That's it.
And I think that's true in the car business in general, but I think what's happening is that rate of change is accelerating.
It's fast.
So those dealers that we're waiting to see may not be able to wait and see anymore. They have to jump in the pool. And I think that's what AI is teaching us daily. It's not perfect, but it's on the track. Yeah. And it's getting faster every day. So I think, to your point, it's a combination of the technology, the people, the training, and more importantly, doing it all the time. And I think that's the key to success. But it sounds like we're out of time. But I appreciate the time. And I'm getting the...
Yeah, that's on me. Because I would sit here, we could do this for hours. I would love talking to you, Ian. It's been great. But yeah, I mean, and this won't be our last time, so we'll definitely schedule some time in the future, and I would love to come back.
Thanks for taking the time, and we'll see you on the show. And of course, if you're curious as to how to reach out, maybe you can give us, we'll put it in the description.
Yeah, and then you can go LinkedIn. I'm always there. You can reach me there. My contact info is there, or either on Google. You can just Google Cage Automotive or Duran Cage, and you'll find it. That's the cool thing about having a weird name. So. After Duran and Michael Jackson, Larry, don't say anything. But that's
argue with a tall man talking into a squirrel.
Isn't that cool?
Hey, if you miss us live, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast.